Before the borders were drawn across Africa, there were roads. Some were made of water. The Nile carried boats between fields of barley and cities of stone. The Red Sea opened toward Arabia, India, and the Mediterranean. Across the Sahara, tracks cut through a landscape that could kill the unprepared, yet caravans learned to cross it. Farther south, cattle paths and river valleys connected high plateaus to forests, mines, and the Indian Ocean. Along these routes, power gathered. Not everywhere in the same way, not at the same time. There was no single African formula for building a kingdom. Egypt grew beside a river whose floods could nourish millions. Kush rose in the Middle Nile, where gold, cattle, desert roads, and river traffic met. Aksum looked east toward the Red Sea and minted coins for a commercial world stretching far beyond Africa. Ghana controlled the spaces between Sahel and Sahara. Great Zimbabwe turned cattle, gold, farming, craftsmanship, and long-distance trade into one of southern Africa's most extraordinary urban landscapes. The monuments remain: pyramids, stele, ruined walls, royal tombs, inscriptions, furnaces, beads, coins. But monuments are only the skeleton. The real story is how people created the systems that made them possible. The first foundation geography becomes politics. A kingdom begins long before a crown is placed on a ruler's head. It begins when communities learn to produce enough food for people who are not farming: scribes, soldiers, priests, miners, traders, masons, officials. It grows when leaders can move grain, livestock, metals, labor, and information across distance. And it endures when authority becomes more than the personality of one ruler, when power is embedded in ritual, taxation, law, kinship, military obligation, or control of trade. Across Africa, geography shaped these possibilities without determining them. Rivers could become highways, deserts could become barriers, but also protected corridors known to specialists. Highland plateaus could support dense settlement while overlooking trade routes below. Gold fields, salt deposits, iron ores, grazing lands, and ports created opportunities, yet resources alone made no empire. Someone had to organize access to them. Someone had to persuade or compel others to accept that organization. That tension between cooperation and extraction lies beneath almost every great state in history. Africa was no exception. Egypt, the kingdom built along a river. More than 5,000 years ago, communities along the Nile were becoming increasingly connected. The river moved north, while seasonal winds often blew south, making travel possible in both directions. Settlements exchanged pottery, grain, stone, livestock, and ideas. Regional rulers competed. Symbols of kingship grew more elaborate. By around 3100 BCE, political unification had produced one of the earliest territorial states in the world. Powerful centers such as Hierakonpolis and Abydos had helped shape the culture from which the pharaonic state emerged. Later tradition compressed this transformation into the achievement of a unifying king. Archaeology suggests something more gradual and more human. Generations of competition, alliance, warfare, ritual display, and administrative experimentation. The famous Narmer palette belongs to this world. It shows a ruler dominating enemies, wearing symbols associated with both Upper and Lower Egypt. Yet scholars caution against reading the object as a simple photograph of one historical conquest. It may commemorate unification, symbolize royal domination, express the cosmic struggle between order and chaos, or all three at once. The Nile made agricultural abundance possible, but the Egyptian state learned to measure, store, redistribute, and tax that abundance. Grain collected from farming communities fed administrators and labor forces. Officials recorded estates and harvests. Regional districts were tied to a royal court. Kingship was presented not simply as government, but as part of cosmic balance mat, the ideal of order, justice, and stability that the ruler was expected to preserve. This is what made monumental building possible. At Giza, the pyramids are so vast that they can conceal the people behind them. Yet one of the most revealing discoveries in Egyptian archaeology is not a treasure of gold. It is paperwork. At Wadi al-Jarf on the Red Sea coast, archaeologists recovered papyri from the reign of Khufu. Among them was the logbook associated with an official named Merer. His records describe crews transporting limestone from the Tura quarries toward the royal building works at Giza. For a moment, the pyramid ceases to be an abstraction. We can imagine boats heavy with white stone moving through channels linked to the Nile, men hauling ropes, supervisors counting days, rations being issued, scribes marking deliveries. The Great Pyramid was an architectural achievement, but it was also an achievement of administration. And administration has a human cost. The same state that coordinated temples, storage, transportation, and construction could also demand taxes and labor. Farmers benefited from stability, exchange, religious institutions, and access to organized resources, yet they carried much of the burden of supporting elites and public works. Egyptian civilization endured not because life was effortless, but because the state repeatedly found ways to transform agricultural surplus into political power. Kush the Nile does not belong to one kingdom. Travel south beyond Egypt's first cataract, and the river enters another ancient world. Here, in what is now Sudan, states emerged whose relationship with Egypt shifted over centuries between trade, rivalry, conquest, colonization, and cultural exchange. Kerma had already become a major center by the 3rd millennium BCE. Later, the Kingdom of Kush developed around Napata and then Meroe. This was not Egypt's transplanted southward. Kushite rulers drew upon Egyptian symbols because those symbols had enormous prestige in the Nile Valley, but they reshaped them within their own political and religious traditions. They built pyramids with different proportions. They honored deities shared with Egypt while elevating Nubian sacred landscapes and local traditions. Their rulers developed a court culture rooted in the political power of the Middle Nile. In the 8th century BCE, Kushite kings moved north into a politically divided Egypt. Piye and his successors established what Egyptologists call the 25th Dynasty. For several generations, rulers from Kush governed both Nubia and Egypt, presenting themselves as legitimate pharaohs and restorers of sacred order. Their rise tells us something important about African statecraft. Cultural influence did not move in only one direction. Egypt had long intervened in Nubia. Now a Nubian kingdom ruled Egypt. Assyrian invasions eventually forced Kushite power back toward the south, but Kush did not disappear. The political center increasingly shifted toward Meroe, where archaeology has revealed temples, palaces, pyramids, water management installations, workshops, ceramics, and substantial evidence of metalworking and long-distance exchange. Meroitic rulers also developed their own written script, although the language recorded in it remains only partly understood. Even Rome discovered that the southern Nile was not easily dominated. After Rome annexed Egypt, conflict broke out with Kush. A Candike, a royal woman, often rendered in later sources as Candace, named Amanirenas, is associated with resistance to Roman expansion. Roman forces marched south and sacked Napata, but warfare did not end in permanent Roman conquest. Around 20 BCE, the two powers reached a settlement that stabilized their frontier and opened a long period of relative peace. Kush survived because it adapted. Its rulers changed political centers, negotiated identities, redirected commerce, and preserved authority through transformation. By the 4th century CE, the Meroitic state had fragmented amid changes in regional power, settlement, and trade. The exact combination of causes remains debated. The ruins resist simple endings. Kingdoms rarely vanish in a single night. More often, their institutions loosen, routes change, rivals rise, and old centers become less important while new societies inherit the landscape. Aksum, a kingdom facing the sea. In the northern Ethiopian and Eritrean highlands, another state emerged during the 1st century CE. Aksum stood inland among productive uplands, but its wealth was tied to movement. Through the port of Adulis, merchants connected the African interior to the Red Sea and the wider commercial world beyond. Ivory and other commodities moved outward. Foreign goods, travelers, beliefs, and languages moved in. At Aksum, stone itself became a language of power. Enormous monolithic stele rose above elite burial grounds, some carved to resemble towering multi-story buildings. Royal inscriptions appeared in Ge'ez, Sabaean, and Greek. Coins carried the faces and titles of kings. Gold issues entered international commerce while other denominations circulated closer to home. Few ancient African kingdoms speak to us through so many different materials at once. Then, during the 4th century, King Ezana embraced Christianity. The transformation can be watched on the coinage. Earlier issues display the crescent and disc associated with pre-Christian religion. Later coins replaced them with the cross. A decision made at court became visible in objects passing from market to market, hand to hand. Religion here was not merely private belief. It reshaped royal ideology and tied Aksum more closely to Christian communities beyond the Red Sea. Christianity could also offer a shared sacred language for a kingdom containing diverse populations, while the authority of the monarch gained a new theological foundation. Yet Aksum's strength was never only foreign trade. Its rulers commanded a productive highland base and expanded into neighboring territories. At moments, Aksumite power reached across the Red Sea into southern Arabia. Its decline was gradual. Changes in Red Sea commerce, warfare across the region, ecological pressures, and shifts in political geography all appear to have mattered. Historians continue to debate their relative weight, but the kingdom's cultural life did not end with imperial contraction. Ge'ez endured as a sacred literary language. Christianity became deeply rooted in Ethiopian civilization. And long after Aksum ceased to dominate the routes that had helped make it wealthy, the old city remained a place of memory, legitimacy, and royal ceremony. Ghana power at the edge of the Sahara. Centuries later, far to the west, another kind of empire emerged. The kingdom known to Arabic writers as Ghana flourished in the western Sahel, in regions now belonging chiefly to Mauritania and Mali. Its Soninke traditions remember Ouagadougou, but oral tradition, Arabic texts, and archaeology do not always align neatly. Even the identification of the archaeological site of Kumbisala as Ghana's political capital must be treated cautiously. Important questions about the empire's geography and organization remain unresolved. What is clear is the structure of opportunity. To the north lay the Sahara and the commercial centers of North Africa. To the south and southwest lay gold-producing regions. Between them stood Sahelian rulers capable of protecting routes, taxing exchange, forging alliances, and controlling access. As trans-Saharan commerce expanded, caravans carried salt, copper, textiles, and manufactured goods southward. Gold moved north. Ghana's rulers did not need to own every gold mine. Their power came from controlling the political geography around trade. They occupied the middle ground between producers and merchants, and middle grounds can become immensely valuable. Arabic authors describe royal wealth and communities of Muslim traders. Archaeology at Kumbisala has uncovered substantial architecture, imported materials, and evidence of an urban environment tied to the commerce of the Sahara. Recent scholarship nevertheless stresses how much remains uncertain about the precise relationship between the archaeological city, Arabic accounts, and the empire itself. But prosperity creates vulnerability. Trade routes can enrich a kingdom. They can also bypass it. Political competition intensified. Commercial networks shifted. New powers emerged. Older narratives once portrayed Ghana's decline as the consequence of a single Almoravid conquest, but historians now treat that explanation much more cautiously. The evidence points toward a longer and more complicated transformation involving political fragmentation, changing commercial relationships, and eventually the rise of Mali. The empire changed. The commercial world that had sustained it did not disappear. Great Zimbabwe, city of stone and cattle. Far to the south, granite walls rise from the Zimbabwean plateau. They were built without mortar. Blocks of local stone were shaped and stacked into sweeping curves, narrow passages, terraces, and enclosures. Great Zimbabwe was occupied from the 11th century onward and rose to exceptional prominence between roughly the 12th and 15th centuries. Its built-up center covered around 80 hectares within a much larger archaeological landscape. Its economy was grounded in the land around it. People cultivated sorghum and millets. Herds of cattle represented food, status, social relationships, and wealth. Artisans worked iron, copper, and gold. Local production supported a political center whose influence reached across a wider landscape of stone-built settlements. Then there are the objects that traveled much farther. Glass beads, imported ceramics, coins from Kilwa, porcelain from across the Indian Ocean world. These finds do not mean Great Zimbabwe was created by outsiders. They reveal the opposite. An African state powerful enough to participate in commercial networks connecting the interior to Swahili ports and, from there, to Arabia and Asia. Gold and ivory could move toward the coast. Foreign luxuries returned inland and acquired new meaning in local systems of prestige. The stone walls made distinctions in space visible. Certain areas were more restricted than others. Political and ritual authority appears to have shaped how people occupied the settlement, although archaeologists increasingly caution against imagining an overly simple society divided permanently between kings above and commoners below. Great Zimbabwe was complex enough to resist that kind of easy reconstruction. Its soapstone birds among the site's most famous sculptures probably carried political and sacred meanings, although their precise significance cannot be recovered with certainty. By the 15th century, Great Zimbabwe's importance was diminishing as political and economic gravity shifted toward other centers, including Kami and states associated with Mutapa. But its later history contains another lesson. When European travelers and colonizers confronted the ruins in the 19th century, many refused to believe Africans could have built them. Phoenicians, Arabs, and biblical figures were proposed instead. Systematic archaeology overturned those fantasies. Investigations in the early 20th century demonstrated the site's African origins, a conclusion now supported overwhelmingly by architecture, ceramics, settlement history, material culture, and its connections with Shona-speaking societies. The denial had never been only about stones. It was about who was permitted to possess a past, what built the kingdoms. Stand back from the pyramids, stele, mosques, palaces, and walls, and a pattern appears. Africa's great kingdoms were not miracles rising from emptiness. They were systems. Farmers created surpluses. Pastoralists moved wealth across ecological zones. Miners extracted metals. Craftspeople turned raw materials into tools, weapons, ornaments, and ritual objects. Merchants connected regions rulers could never directly govern. Priests and royal traditions gave authority a sacred vocabulary. Officials counted, taxed, judged, stored, recorded, and negotiated. Soldiers defended routes and expanded frontiers, and ordinary people bore the weight. Kingdoms created security and opportunity, but also hierarchy. They enriched courts while demanding labor. They connected distant cultures while fighting wars over access and power. Their grandeur was real, so were the inequalities that sustained it. That complexity is precisely why these kingdoms matter. For generations, African history was too often written as though the continent waited at the edge of the world for outsiders to bring movement, cities, belief, commerce, and government. The archaeological record tells another story. Modern African historiography increasingly brings together archaeology, written records, linguistics, oral traditions, environmental evidence, and material culture to recover histories that no single category of evidence could tell alone. Africa was already moving along rivers, across deserts, through highlands, toward oceans. Its kingdoms rose because African societies learned, in different environments and different centuries, how to turn ecology into economy, economy into authority, and authority into institutions that could outlive the people who created them. Some of those institutions failed. Some transformed. Some survived in language, religion, memory, architecture, craftsmanship, and political tradition. And across the continent, stone still stands where power once gathered, not as evidence of a lost Africa, but of an Africa that was always part of the making of the ancient and medieval world. Subscribe to Ancient Africa Explained for more videos like this, turn on notification bell, and let me know the area you would like me to cover on my next video.